The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent radio signals into the void. They launched probes carrying golden records of human music and greetings. They built telescopes that could see billions of light years away. But the universe never answered back. Until the day it did. Commander stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, Earth's and most powerful warship. He was a tall man with tired eyes and hair at his temples. 20 years of military service had taught him to stay calm in any situation, but what he saw on the made his heart stop. 17 massive ships appeared from nowhere. They were each bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were dark purple, covered with strange symbols that glowed with pale blue light. They hung in space above Earth like predators watching their prey. "What are those?" whispered Lieutenant. She was young, barely 25, but she was the best weapons officer in the fleet. "Contact the other ships," said, keeping his voice steady. "I want every vessel we have moving to intercept positions." Admiral's face appeared on the communication screen. She was aboard the command station orbiting Mars, watching everything through long-range sensors. Her expression was grim. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien vessels. They're using our radio frequencies. Somehow they already learned our language." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled. Then a voice spoke. It was cold and mechanical, like a computer trying to sound like a person. "People of Earth, we are the Dominion. We have crossed the stars to bring you under our protection. You will surrender your planet, your resources, and your people to our rule. In exchange, we will allow you to continue existing. You have 1 hour to accept. If you refuse, your cities will burn and your species will end. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge, could hear his own heartbeat. He looked around at his crew. Some were scared, some were angry. Hands were shaking, but her jaw was set with determination. "Sir," she said quietly, "what do we do?" Thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 12 years old. She liked to draw pictures of spaceships and dream about exploring the galaxy. He thought about the 8 billion people living their lives below, unaware that everything was about to change. "Get me a secure line to General," he said. "Priority Alpha." General was the most powerful military leader on Earth. She commanded the United Defense Force from a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Korea. When her face appeared on the screen, saw something he didn't expect. She was smiling. "Commander," she said, "I assume you've seen our visitors." "Yes, General. They're demanding surrender. They gave us 1 hour." "I know. We intercepted their transmission," leaned forward. "Do you remember Project Ember?" Felt a chill run down his spine. Project Ember was a rumor. A ghost story passed between high-ranking officers late at night. Some said it was a secret weapons program. Others said it was a myth created to make soldiers feel safer. "I thought that was just a story," he said. "It's real, and it's been ready for 50 years, waiting for exactly this moment." Smile grew wider. "Commander, I need you to do something very difficult. I need you to stall for 15 minutes. Can you do that?" 15 minutes? They gave us an hour. 15 minutes is all we need. After that, you'll receive new orders, trust me. The screen went dark. Turned to his crew. "You heard the General. We need to buy time. Open a channel to the alien fleet." The flickered and suddenly was looking at her. The alien was humanoid but wrong in subtle ways. Its skin was pale. Its eyes were too large, completely black, with no white at all. It wore armor that seemed to be grown rather than built, organic and flowing. "You wish to surrender?" they asked. "That is wise." Forced himself to speak calmly. "We need time. Our leaders must discuss your offer. There are many nations on our planet, each with its own government. They must all agree." They made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your primitive political structures do not concern us. You will surrender as one species or die as one species. The choice is simple." "Please," said. "We are not refusing. We just need time to organize. Surely a great civilization like yours can understand the need for proper procedure." The alien studied him with those black eyes. "We have conquered 63 species. Some fought, some surrendered, all now serve the Dominion." It paused. "You may have 30 minutes. Use them wisely. When the time ends, we will begin with the city you call New York." The transmission cut off. 12 minutes passed, the longest 12 minutes of his life. He watched the alien ships on his sensors. They were not moving, just waiting, confident, Why wouldn't they be? They had conquered 63 civilizations. What was one more? Then his console beeped. New orders from General. Read them twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then he started to laugh. Sir looked concerned. Are you okay? Better than okay, Lieutenant. Straightened in his chair. Signal all ships. We're moving to attack formation. Attack, sir. Those ships are massive. Our weapons can't even scratch them. Our old weapons can't, smiled. But we have new ones. General is uploading targeting data now. Lock onto the lead vessel and prepare to fire on my command. Across the fleet, 37 human warships changed course. They were small compared to the dreadnoughts, like mice approaching elephants. The aliens must have been amused. They wouldn't be amused for long. All ships report ready, announced. Her voice was steadier now. She had seen the new weapons data. She understood what they could do. Opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Commander. For 50 years, our scientists have been preparing for this day. They knew that someday we would meet beings from another world, and they knew those beings might not come in peace. So they built weapons that the galaxy has never seen. Today, we show the universe what humanity can do. All ships fire at will. The stars lit up with the light of a new kind of war. Captain had flown combat missions for 15 years. He had trained in every type of spacecraft humanity had ever built. He thought he understood war in space, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His fighter, the Black Arrow, was equipped with weapons that shouldn't exist. The briefing had been short and confusing. Scientists using words he didn't understand, quantum something, gravitational manipulation, relativistic kinetics. All knew was that when he pressed the trigger, bad things would happen to the enemy. He hoped so anyway. Arrow Squadron, form up on me, he ordered through his radio. We're going in first. Our job is to test their defenses and report back. 12 fighters flew in tight formation toward the nearest dreadnought. The alien ship was enormous, stretching almost 2 kilometers from front to back. Its surface was covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays. Blue energy crackled around its hull. That's their shield, said a voice in Seer. It was Doctor, speaking from the science vessel Eternal Dawn far behind the battle line. She was the lead scientist on Project Ember, a small woman with messy hair and circles under her eyes from too many sleepless nights. Every spacefaring species uses energy shields. They absorb and disperse plasma, lasers, and particle beams, very effective against all known weapons. So how do we get through? Asked. You don't need to, that's the point. He could hear the smile in her voice. Energy shields are designed to stop energy. They don't stop solid objects. Every species abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago because they seemed primitive. No one bothered to develop shields against them. You're telling me we're going to beat advanced aliens with bullets? Not bullets, Captain. Tungsten rods moving at 3% of light speed. At that velocity, a 1-kilogram projectile hits with the force of a small nuclear bomb. Their shields won't even slow it down. Took a deep breath. Arrow Squadron, you heard the doctor. Switch to kinetic weapons. Target the lead ship's engine section. He lined up his shot. The targeting computer painted a red circle on the dreadnought's rear section. His finger touched the trigger. Firing. The mounted beneath his fighter made no sound in the vacuum of space, but felt the kick as electromagnetic coils accelerated a metal rod to impossible speeds. It crossed the distance between his fighter and the enemy ship in less than a heartbeat. The tungsten rod passed through the shield like it wasn't there. It punched into the hull through 3 decks, through the engine core and out the other side. The dreadnought shuddered. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. Lights flickered and died. Direct hit, his voice came over the fleet channel from the horizon's edge. The enemy ship has lost engine power, it's drifting. Stared at his sensors, unable to believe what he was seeing. One shot from a small fighter had crippled a ship that could destroy a planet. Arrow Squadron, keep firing, don't give them time to react. 12 fighters unleashed a storm of metal. Tungsten rods tore through hulls like paper. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds began to break apart. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. But they were not helpless. They recovered from their shock and began fighting back. Plasma beams lanced through space, turning one of its pilots into a ball of fire. Missiles with intelligent guidance systems chased the human fighters, forcing them to dodge and weave. We've lost 3 ships, reported. The enemy is adapting. They're focusing fire on our fighters. "Hold on, Captain," Admiral's voice cut in. "We're bringing up the heavy weapons." The silent thunder moved forward. It was an ugly ship, all angles and armor plates with no windows and no decorations. Most of the fleet didn't even know what it was for. Lieutenant did. She had been chosen to operate its main weapon. "Gravitational projector is online," she announced. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. "Targeting 3 enemy cruisers at Grid 7. "Fire when ready," Admiral ordered. "Press the button." Nothing visible happened, no beam of light, no explosion. But on the sensors, 3 cruisers suddenly began to move strangely. Their hulls bent inward, metal screamed and twisted. In seconds, the ships collapsed into themselves, crushed by gravitational forces that appeared from nowhere. Across the fleet, panic spread. They had never seen anything like this. They had never imagined anything like this. Their communications filled with confused screams and desperate orders. Commander watched from the horizon's edge. "Doctor, how did we develop gravity weapons? I thought that was impossible." "It was impossible," she replied, "until we found a way to create artificial mass through quantum field manipulation. We can project a gravity well anywhere within 10,000 kilometers. Anything caught inside gets crushed. It ignores shields, armor, and everything else." "That's terrifying." "Yes, that's the point." But humanity had one more surprise. They tried to coordinate their retreat, sending orders through their communication network. They needed to regroup, form new attack patterns, and use their superior numbers. Their orders never arrived. "They're using light-speed communications," Doctor explained. "Standard galactic technology, but we cracked quantum entanglement 50 years ago. Our ships can communicate instantly, anywhere, with no delay. While they're still waiting for orders to travel across the battlefield, we're already responding." The human fleet moved as one organism. Every ship knew exactly what every other ship was doing. When they tried to flank them, human vessels were already waiting. When they tried to concentrate fire on a single target, other ships covered their ally before the first shot landed. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. 47 minutes after the first shot was fired, the fleet retreated. 11 of their 17 ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled into hyperspace, running from a species they had planned to enslave. Captain brought his fighter back to the horizon's edge. His hands were still shaking. He had lost 6 pilots today, good people who had trusted him, but they had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had never known defeat, humanity had won. General's face appeared on every screen in the fleet. "Today we proved something important. We are not alone in the universe, and the universe is not friendly. But humanity will not bow, we will not break, we will not surrender. Whatever comes next, we will face it together, and we will win." Somewhere out among the stars, the Dominion was learning a new word, a word they had never needed before. Fear, the Galactic Council met on a space station older than human civilization. It floated at the center of the galaxy, built by species that had died out before Earth's dinosaurs were born. Here, the 12 most powerful civilizations gathered to decide the fate of the stars. Ambassador walked through corridors made of crystal and light. He was the first human to ever set foot in this place. Every step he took was history being made, but he did not feel proud. He felt like a man walking into a room full of hungry wolves. The council chamber was a massive dome filled with floating platforms. Each platform held representatives from one of the 12 ruling species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that his brain struggled to understand what he was seeing. One species appeared to be made of living smoke. Another was a cluster of geometric shapes that hummed with electricity. In the center of the room, a single platform waited for him, the accused. "You are the human called?" The voice came from the representative, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms. They were the oldest species on the council. They believed that gave them the right to lead. "I am Ambassador, representing the United Nations of Earth." "We did not ask your title, we asked your name." This voice dripped with contempt. "You are a young species, barely able to leave your own solar system. You do not deserve titles." Kept his face calm. He had been warned about this. The council looked down on younger races. They saw them as children at best, animals at worst. "What does Earth want from this council?" asked the representative. This one was larger than the soldiers who had attacked Earth. A leader, maybe, or a priest. The blended war and religion in ways humans found disturbing. "We want nothing," replied. "We are here because we were summoned." The council demanded an explanation for our defensive actions. "Defensive?" The black eyes narrowed. "You destroyed 11 ships. You killed 17,000 soldiers. You call this defense? Your fleet came to our planet. They threatened to burn our cities. They demanded our surrender. What would you call our response?" "We call it a crime." This came from the platform. There were warriors covered in natural armor and blade-like limbs. "You used forbidden technology. Gravitational weapons were banned after the Sundering War. 300 billion died in that conflict. The Council swore that such weapons would never be used again." Had prepared for this argument. "Earth was not part of that war. We didn't know you existed. We developed these weapons independently to defend ourselves against exactly the kind of threat that appeared above our planet." "Ignorance is not an excuse," the Prime declared. "The laws of the Council apply to all species in this galaxy." "All species who agreed to those laws," stepped forward on his platform. "We never agreed. We never signed your treaties. We were never asked. You created rules to govern the galaxy, but you never bothered to tell us those rules existed." Silence fell over the Council. They were not used to being challenged. Younger species usually cowered before them, eager to please, desperate to be accepted. "Let me share some information with this Council," continued. "For 200 years, the Dominion has conquered species across this galaxy. 63 civilizations destroyed or enslaved. Their people worked to death in mines and factories. Their cultures erased. Their children raised to serve masters. The Council did nothing." "Internal matters," the representative growled. "How we govern our territories is not the Council's concern." "But somehow how we govern our defense is your concern," pointed at the. "You sat here in this chamber of supposed justice while an entire quarter of the galaxy burned. You watched billions suffer and die. You said nothing, did nothing. But when one species finally fights back, when one species says no more, suddenly you care about laws and treaties." More silence. Some of the Council members shifted uncomfortably. The Prime's silver face showed no emotion, but his 4 hands were clenched tight. "What is your point, human?" he asked. "My point is simple. Earth is not interested in conquest. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone, but we will not be enslaved. We will not be conquered. And we will defend ourselves with every weapon we have, regardless of what laws we never agreed to follow." "You threaten the Council." Smiled, it was not a friendly smile. "I inform the Council. There is a difference. The fleet was the most powerful military force most species have ever seen. We broke it in less than an hour. We have more weapons. Better weapons, things that would make your gravitational projectors look like children's toys. We hope we never have to use them, but we will if we must." The Council erupted in argument. Representatives shouted at each other across the chamber. Some demanded immediate action against Earth. Others counseled caution. A few, very quietly, suggested that maybe the humans had a point about the. While they argued, received a message on his private communicator. It was from General. "Good speech," it read. "Keep them busy. We're activating Phase 2. Didn't know what Phase 2 was. He wasn't sure he wanted to know, but he trusted. He trusted that whatever humanity was planning, it would change everything. The Prime finally restored order. "The Council will deliberate. You will remain on this station until we reach a decision. Do not attempt to leave." "Of course," bowed slightly. "I look forward to your decision." As he was escorted back to his quarters, past a group of aliens he didn't recognize. They were small, with fur and large ears. They looked at him with something strange in their eyes, something that took him a moment to identify. Hope. These were not Council members. They were servants, slaves probably from one of the conquests, and they had heard everything. Realized that his speech had not just been for the Council. It had been for everyone listening, every conquered species, every slave, every victim of the Dominion's cruelty. The message was simple. Someone finally fought back. Someone finally won. And if humanity could do it, maybe others could too. Phase 2, whatever it was, had already begun. Not in human laboratories or military bases, but in the hearts of billions of beings across the galaxy who had forgotten what it felt like to have hope. The game was changing, and humanity was just getting started, had spent his life studying dead civilizations. As a historian, he explored ruins on forgotten moons and translated languages no one had spoken for centuries. He never expected to become a spy, but war makes strange demands on people. 6 months after the battle above Earth, sat in a small ship on the edge of space. He was waiting for a signal, a message from beings he had never met, asking for help that humanity might not be able to give. His communicator beeped. The message was short, just 3 words in a language that humans had only recently learned to decode. "We are ready." Activated his ship's engines and flew toward a small moon that didn't appear on any official maps. On its surface, hidden beneath layers of rock and ice, was a secret base built by the Resistance. They were one of the first species conquered by the almost 1,000 years ago. They were small beings, barely reaching human chest height with fur and large ears. For centuries, they had worked as servants and slaves across the Dominion. They cleaned homes, cooked food, and raised children. They were considered harmless, invisible, beneath notice. That was their greatest advantage. The base was crowded with rebels. They watched with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. He was the first human they had ever seen in person. To them, humans were legends, monsters who had done the impossible. Their leader was an elderly named. His fur was white with age, but his eyes were sharp. "You came," said. "We were not sure you would." "Humanity keeps its promises," replied. "You asked for help, we're here to help." He opened a case he had brought from his ship. Inside were weapons, communication devices, and small metal spheres about the size of apples. "What are those?" asked, pointing at the spheres. "Gravitational grenades. Throw one at a patrol and it creates a localized gravity well. Everything within 10 meters gets crushed." Paused. "They're very effective, also very dangerous. Only use them when absolutely necessary." Picked up one of the grenades. His small hands trembled slightly. "For 1,000 years we have waited for this moment. We have planned rebellions that never happened. We have dreamed of freedom that never came. Now you give us weapons that can actually hurt them." "The weapons are just tools," said gently. "What matters is the will to use them. Do your people have that will?" "We have more than will." His eyes hardened. "We have 1,000 years of anger, 1,000 years of humiliation, 1,000 years of watching our children taken, our culture destroyed, our people treated like animals. Yes, human, we have the will." Over the next months, humanity built a secret network across space. They couldn't send armies or fleets. That would start a war that Earth wasn't ready to fight. But they could send weapons, technology, and most importantly, hope. Captain spent weeks training alien pilots in human combat tactics. He taught them how to move together, how to communicate, how to hit fast and disappear before the enemy could respond. "They are used to enemies who fight in straight lines," he explained to a group of rebels. "They expect you to meet them head-on. Don't do that. Attack their supply lines, destroy their communication relays, make them afraid to sleep." Doctor worked with resistance scientists to adapt human weapons for alien users. Different species had different needs. Some had claws instead of fingers. Others couldn't see in normal light. Every weapon had to be modified, tested, and improved. But the most important contribution came from a young engineer named. She was only 28 years old, a genius from who specialized in biological systems. When she studied captured technology, she discovered something remarkable. "Everything they build is organic," she explained to General during a video conference. "Their ships, their weapons, even their computers, it's all based on biotechnology, living systems grown in tanks and programmed to perform specific functions." "Why does that matter?" "Because living systems can get sick," smiled. "I've developed a virus. It targets the specific genetic markers in biotech. It doesn't hurt themselves, it just makes their equipment stop working." The virus was tested on a captured shuttle. Within hours, the ship's systems began to fail. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support continued because the virus was designed to be merciful, but everything else died. "Can you spread this across their entire fleet?" asked. "With the right delivery system, yes, but we'd need to get it into their central networks, the main command stations that coordinate everything." Nodded slowly. "I think I know some people who can help with that." They were everywhere in the Dominion. They served in homes, on ships, in military bases. They were invisible, trusted, given access to places no outsider could ever reach. Listened to the plan and smiled a smile that showed too many teeth. "For 1,000 years, they have made us serve them. They never wondered what we might do with that access. They never thought to fear the servants." The virus spread silently through space. Hidden in data transfers, carried on cleaning equipment, introduced through food preparation systems. They moved it from world to world, from ship to ship, planting seeds of destruction that waited for the signal to bloom. When they finally launched their second invasion fleet, 47 ships strong, humanity was ready. The fleet emerged from hyperspace near Mars, their weapons powered up. Their commanders broadcast threats and demands. They were confident. They had analyzed the first battle. They had developed countermeasures for human weapons. This time would be different. Lieutenant watched them approach from the silent thunder. Her hand rested on a small control panel, waiting for the order. "Fleet is in range," she reported. "They're charging weapons." Admiral's voice came through the communicator. "Activate the virus." Pressed a button. Across the fleet, every system failed at once. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Navigation computers went dark. 47 warships, the pride of the Dominion's military, became helpless metal shells drifting through space. There was no battle. There was nothing to fight. Human ships moved incautiously. They expected a trap, some hidden backup system, but there was nothing. The crews were alive but completely helpless. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force," she broadcast to the disabled fleet. "Your ships are non-functional. Your weapons are offline. You cannot fight. You cannot flee. You are completely at our mercy." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We could destroy you right now, every ship, every soldier. No one would survive. That is what you would do to us." Another pause. "But we are not you. We are sending rescue shuttles with food, water, and medical supplies. Accept our help. Let this be the beginning of a different kind of relationship between our peoples." They had no choice but to accept. Across the galaxy, news of the second defeat spread like wildfire. The mighty Dominion humiliated again, and this time the humans hadn't even needed to fire a shot. More importantly, rumors spread about how it happened. Whispers about a virus, questions about who had planted it, suspicions about the servants who were always present, always watching, always waiting. The Dominion began to crack, not from military defeat, but from something worse. The sudden, terrifying realization that their slaves were not as harmless as they seemed. The rebellion had truly begun. 1 year after first contact, the Dominion collapsed. Did not fall in a single great battle. There was no dramatic final stand, no desperate last charge. Instead, it crumbled slowly like a building with rotten foundations. Rebellion spread from world to world. Species that had been enslaved for centuries rose up against their masters. Soldiers found themselves surrounded by enemies they had never noticed before. The servants they had trusted to cook their food. The workers they had ignored in their factories. The slaves they had considered beneath their attention. By the time the last command structure surrendered, the galaxy had already changed beyond recognition. The Council of 12 dissolved itself. There was no dramatic vote, no formal announcement. The member species simply stopped attending meetings. They who had led the council for 10,000 years retreated to their home systems and refused to speak to outsiders. The others scattered, each dealing with their own internal problems as the old order fell apart. In its place, something new emerged. The Galactic Assembly was ambassador's idea. Every species, large or small, powerful or weak, would have equal voice. No more ruling councils of ancient empires. No more hierarchies based on age or military strength. Just beings from across the stars working together to build something better. The first assembly meeting was held on a space station orbiting Earth. It seemed fitting. Humanity had started this transformation. They would host its beginning. Stood at the central podium, looking out at representatives from over 200 species. Some had traveled for months to attend. Others had never left their home systems before. Many had been slaves just weeks ago. They sat in chairs designed for their bodies, breathing air mixed for their needs, united by nothing except a shared hope for the future. "We are here today because the old ways failed," began. "The Council of 12 promised peace and stability. Instead, they gave us tyranny and conquest. They allowed the strong to prey on the weak. They called slavery internal matters and looked away from suffering they could have stopped." He paused, meeting eyes across the chamber. So many different kinds of eyes, black like the, silver like the. Some species had dozens of eyes, some had none at all. Humanity is new to the galaxy. We don't have ancient wisdom or thousands of years of tradition. But we have learned something from our own history. Empires fall, always. No matter how strong they seem, no matter how permanent they appear, they eventually collapse. The only question is what comes after. He gestured at the gathered delegates. This is what comes after, not another empire, not another hierarchy, just people working together, each voice as important as any other. It won't be easy. We will argue. We will disagree. Sometimes we will fail, but we will do it together as equals. The chamber erupted in applause. Not everyone clapped. Some species showed approval in other ways. The stomped their feet. The clicked their blade arms together. One species that appeared to be made of living crystal simply glowed brighter. After the ceremony, General found a quiet observation deck overlooking Earth. Doctor joined her there, along with Commander, who now wore an admiral's insignia. "They're afraid of us," observed, watching the delegates mingle below. "Even now, after everything we've done to help, they're afraid." "Can you blame them?" replied. "They saw what our weapons can do. They know we could have done to them what they did. The fact that we chose not to doesn't erase their fear." "Will they ever trust us?" "Some will, some won't. That's not really the point, is it?" Turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" Leaned against the window, her reflection ghostly against the stars. "I've thought about this a lot. Every species we've met developed weapons. They had plasma cannons. They had biological agents. They built devices that could crack planets in half. We're not special because we made better weapons. Then what makes us different? We're the only species that consistently chose not to use them," smiled softly. "The conquered 63 civilizations because they could. We helped free them because we believed we should. That's humanity's real secret weapon. Not our technology, but our stubborn insistence that power should serve justice, not the other way around." Admiral had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. "Do you really believe that? After everything we've seen, they weren't evil. They were just doing what powerful species do. If we had been in their position with their history and their culture, we might have done the same." "Maybe," admitted, "but we weren't in their position. We developed alone on a single planet with no one to conquer except each other. And yes, we did plenty of conquering. Our history is full of empires and slavery and terrible cruelty. But we also kept reaching for something better. We kept trying to build societies where might doesn't make right. We kept insisting that every person has value, regardless of their power or their usefulness." She turned to face them both. "That's what I wanted to preserve when I built the weapons in Project Ember, not humanity's bodies or our territory or even our species. I wanted to preserve our chance to share that idea with the universe. The idea that strength should protect weakness, not exploit it, that the powerful have an obligation to help the powerless, that mercy is not weakness." Below them, a delegate was talking with a representative. Former master and former slave, sharing drinks, perhaps even sharing jokes. A sight that would have been impossible a year ago. "Do you think it'll last?" asked. "This assembly, this new order, do you think it'll survive?" Watch the impossible scene below. It doesn't matter if it lasts forever. It matters that it started at all. 1,000 years from now, whatever exists in this galaxy will know that there was once a moment when bitter enemies chose peace. When the strong lifted up the weak instead of crushing them. When beings from across the stars decided to trust each other, even knowing how badly that trust could be betrayed. "That's optimistic for a general." "I've earned the right to be optimistic," straightened her uniform. "We won, not just the battles, but the real fight, the fight to prove that there's another way. Now we have to show them that it works." Ambassador was elected the first Secretary General of the Galactic Assembly. The position had no real power. It couldn't command armies or impose laws. All it could do was listen, suggest, and help others find common ground. Considered that the perfect job description for humanity's representative. The species was not destroyed or punished. Many of their former soldiers joined reconstruction efforts, building homes for the people they had once enslaved. Some did it out of genuine regret. Others did it because they had no choice. Over time, the distinction stopped mattering. Project Ember was officially shut down. Its weapons were dismantled. Its research was sealed away. Most people believed it was gone forever. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, a small facility remained operational. Just a few rooms, maintained by a skeleton crew that changed every decade. Inside those rooms were plans, designs, blueprints for weapons that made gravitational projectors look like toys. Doctor's final directive was carved into the entrance. "We build these weapons hopping never to use them. We preserve them knowing someday we might have to. The galaxy is vast, and we have only explored a fraction. Whatever comes next, from the darkness between stars, from dimensions unknown, from threats we cannot imagine, humanity will be ready. Not because we want war, but because we understand that peace is only possible when good people are strong enough to defend it. 200 years later, the Galactic Assembly remained the largest peaceful coalition in known history. There were problems, of course, arguments and conflicts and occasional small wars, but nothing like the old days, nothing like the time when empires rose and fell on the broken backs of conquered peoples. Humanity spread across the stars, but never as conquerors. They went as teachers, traders, explorers. They carried with them that stubborn human idea, the one that had confused and frightened the galaxy from the very beginning. The idea that power is not for domination, that strength should serve others, that the true measure of a species is not what it can take, but what it can give. Some species never accepted it. They thought humans were naive or deceptive or hiding some secret agenda. They waited for humanity to reveal its true nature, to begin the conquest that surely must come. They were still waiting when humans started dying of old age, surrounded by who spoke a dozen different alien languages and called the whole galaxy their home. The stars had always been silent. Now they were full of voices, speaking to each other, learning from each other, building a future together. It was not a perfect future, but it was a future worth having. And it all started because one small planet, when faced with impossible odds and certain destruction, decided to fight back. Not for power, not for conquest. Just for the right to exist and to share what they had learned. That was humanity's secret arsenal, not weapons of war, but weapons of hope. And hope, as the galaxy learned, was the most dangerous weapon of all.